doing good.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Sheila.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Bobby.
That sexy lady right there.
Right. Mhm.
Who is that?
She has her hair down.
I see. I see. What's that song? I got a new way to wear my hair. Go on, Miss Doris.
New attitude.
All right, so we are live.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Angie Banks. Sorry, I don't have a camera, but it's December 12th, 2024, right around 4:33 p.m. And I'd like to open the Trustee Business Committee meeting of the Public School Retirement System of the City of St. Louis. Sue, can you take roll call, please?
Angela Banks,
Here.
Christina Bennett, Louis Cross,
Present.
Sheila Goodwin,
Present.
Shanice Johnson, Yvette Levy, Bobby Richardson,
Present.
Albert Sanders, Doris Walker,
Here.
and Sadie Weiss.
Present.
All right. So we do have 6, so we have a quorum.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like we have 2 items on the agenda today, the 2024 trustee travel expenses and the 2025 operating budget. So Sue, do you want to put up the travel expenses for everyone to review?
Yeah. And I think while I'm doing that, I think Chairman Cross wanted to.
Oh, yeah. I want to take a moment to welcome a new trustee board member, and that is Sadie Weiss. And Sadie comes to us as an appointed person from the school board. And I just wanted to welcome you, Sadie, and we look forward to working with you and having a lot of fun.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I appreciate it. It's great to be here, and I look forward to working with you all as well. So thank you.
Yes.
I told you it was fun, Sadie.
You did tell me that, so I'm excited.
Okay. And I apologize, Emily, I don't think I called your name.
Well, I'm here. I'm about to switch devices, but I'm here.
Okay. All right. I apologize. I did not call your name. All right. So we actually have 7.
7.
All right. Well, what is up on the screen right now is the expenses that we have had from trustees traveling to conferences throughout 2024. We have had a good number of folks attending sessions outside of the St. Louis area. There are some, just as a bit of background, there are some conferences that are automatically approved by the system for trustees and any PSRSL staff to attend as well. So those are through the National Council on Teacher Retirement. NASP is a finance securities professionals organization. And then we have MAPERS, which is the Missouri Public Employee Retirement System. So MAPERS has a large conference that is usually in the month of July at the Lake of the Ozarks is where it's been most recently. So those conferences, NCTR has a trustee workshop, and then they have an annual conference, and then NASP also has an annual conference. So those are the conferences that trustees attended this year. So this is just an overview of, you know, how much has been spent so far. Because again, we did have a good number of folks attending the sessions that were held in CTR. I know we had 5 trustees attended that. I think we had 3 trustees at the trustee workshop. And then we had several, probably 4 or 5 at least, that attended MAPERS. So these are the expenses for the year. Now, there's one that's a little different, and that's for Chairman Cross, and that was for mileage. We had some legislative activity this year, and so Chairman Cross was going to Jeff City to visit with legislators, also to attend and speak at hearings. And so there is mileage for him to make those trips. I believe it was 4 trips total for various bills. So that's the only one that's a little bit different that's on this list. So we have been presenting these throughout the year. So this is really just a compilation of all of the expenses so far. For the year, I'm mostly caught up. I think I might have one trustee, maybe possibly 2, that hasn't turned in anything for this year, but this is what we have. And so this is what we've spent for that. And that includes the registration fees that the system will pay.
And Sue, for the, I guess the newer members, can you tell us if there are any limitations on the number of conferences that trustees can attend, or are there any requirements regarding any conferences or anything like that?
Okay, yeah, great point. So there are not really any limitations on the number of conferences that trustees can attend. There are, again, these that are pre-approved. Any other conferences that trustees would want to attend, they would need to bring to the board for approval. There is a requirement for trustees that are on the board to have at least 2 hours of continuing education. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be at conferences. We do try to build some education into some of our sessions that we have, such as investment committee meeting. We'll have some educational pieces that managers or consultant will present. So trustees are required to have, in the state of Missouri, required to have 2 hours of continuing education. New trustees are required to have a little more than that, have up to 7 hours. But we typically cover that through having sessions with our actuary or legal counsel. And then we also go through the binder. And so the new trustees are typically covered by those sessions that we offer. But certainly new trustees are able to attend any of these conferences as well. Limitation on travel is anybody going to a conference, the system will pay for it the day before and the day after. So if the conference starts at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., you can travel the day before, and the system would pay for the hotel the day before. And then the same on the back end. NCTR does that a lot, where they have a conference all day. So sometimes it's difficult to get flights home that same day. So travel would be covered, stay in the hotel would be covered the day after the conference as well.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone have questions about travel or conferences or anything related to that?
Well, I have one question. I just want to ask, were we within our limit that we budgeted last year for travel?
I'm sorry, say the first part of that again, Ms. Richards.
Okay, are we within our limit? You know how we budgeted last year? Did we go over, under, or we broke even?
Yeah, we've gone a little bit over. And I think the reason that we went a little bit over is we had somebody submit expenses from the prior year in this year. So what we had budgeted was 40,000. We didn't spend that much last year, but this year we went a little over. And again, I think that's because we did have some expenses from 23 that landed up in 24.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
Did the trustees submit a report from the
Yes.
conferences?
Yes, that's another, thank you for that. That is another requirement when trustees travel, that they do submit a summary, doesn't have to be long, but a summary of the conference that they attended. And yes, I did receive those along with the voucher, the travel voucher, for those folks traveling.
Any other questions?
Yes, when it comes to the meals when you're traveling, what is covered and what is not covered? And by that I mean like when the conferences, this is for the newcomers, at the conferences, when the meals included, when you make your submit your report or your vouchers, a meal is not in you. Let me see how I want to put this. The meal's not included. Extra meal isn't included if it's included in the breakfast unless you have a medical condition which requires you to eat more. Did I make myself clear on that?
Yes. Yeah, so a
Okay.
lot of times the registration fees do cover, especially at like NASP and NCTR, and I think Vapors as well. They do provide, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not every day, like usually getting conference, you might have just a dinner the first night. So those days that you're traveling where you don't have meals provided, then those would be included as well. So we don't do a per diem. It's just a reimbursement. So trustees hang on to their receipts and they submit those. So we're not paying, so much per day. It's just based on the meals that are purchased. And there's not really any kind of limit on that. But again, a lot of times these conferences, meals are included. So we don't see a lot of reimbursement requests for meals other than, days when before the conference, when you're traveling and then.
So do we need to have these expenses approved, Sue?
Yeah, so I do have.
I'm sorry, you said we have to have the expenses approved or we have to work on the expenses for the upcoming year?
No, we need a motion to approve these final expenses. We've been doing it throughout the year, but this is the total of everything so far.
Okay, I make a move that we accept the expensive presented to the at this business meeting.
Richardson second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Sue, we want to take a roll call vote?
Angela Banks,
Yes.
Lois Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes,
Emily Hubbard,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Doris Walker,
Yes.
Sadie Weiss.
Yes.
So we do have a motion here.
Okay, well, Sue, I am going to turn it over to you to help us go through the 2025 operating budget.
Okay, good. I will put that up. All right, so hopefully everyone received their packet of information. It was sent by regular US mail and then also email. So hopefully everyone received this. So this is something we do at this time every year, is take a look at where we are budget-wise and any changes and so forth that we need to make for the year. I did want to highlight a few things, a few accomplishments before we get into the nitty-gritty of the budget. We began this year really doing some RFP work. We finished the RFP for the attorney, and that resulted in selection of a new law firm with a very competitive fee structure, and that law firm has more resources for the system. So that was a very successful RFP, and that kind of came over from 2023 into early 2024, and so we've been with that new law firm since April of this year. Then we did another RFP throughout the summer, and that was for our pension administration system. And so that again had the trustees reviewing, staff reviewing, and selection was made, and that implementation will start soon and then be hopefully wrapped up by 2027. So that was a pretty long RFP process, but we haven't gotten started on the real work yet. In addition, we did add a second firm for securities monitoring, and this is very important. They will assist us in doing some things to make sure that we have any class action suits that the system might fall under. They will assist us in seeing if it makes sense for us to participate in those, but also to ensure that any that are filed, we would receive whatever piece of that settlement is due. So it's a great service. We had one firm and now we've added a second. We did another RFP during the summer, and that was for our dental coverage, and staying with Delta Dental. And we had come off a 3-year rate guarantee with them. And so for 3 more years going forward through 2027, those premiums were guaranteed at 3%. So I thought that was like very successful RFP completion. As far as general administration, would say that we completed the migration to the new custodian firm this year. That was a little ongoing early in the first quarter, especially with the international assets. So switching to new custodian and bank accounts as well. You know, all of that, you know, took a lot of time in the early part of the year, but all of that is up and running very well now. We've also been working on the employer contribution. That is something that has been a longstanding need to take a look at those contributions. So we've had throughout this year meetings with legislators, and in the fall then we've been meeting with St. Louis Public Schools to talk about changing those contribution rates that were created as part of the legislation in 2017. So we've had some very good discussions and more coming. So that's been a very fluid process as well. Lots of activity there this year. So those are some highlights that I wanted to kind of focus on a little bit. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that, again, we received the award from the Government Finance Officers Association for the 22 annual report. So the system has received that I think about 12 years or so running, and we have submitted the 2023 report for consideration. So hopefully we'll continue to receive that award. Again, that's a pretty lengthy process to put that document together. All right. So how this looks, just to kind of explain what all of this is this is the actual budget here, and what is included in each area is this amount. The 2024 amount is what was budgeted last year. So that's what we did in 2024. And then this highlighted amount here is the amount that's being proposed for 2025. So that's the comparison between those two. I have some other documents that I can share that kind of shows where we are year to date with budget and things like that, that were included in the packet as well. But so this is just looking at each line item and how much was budgeted in 2024, and then how much is proposed for 2025. So we start with really the biggest part of the budget, and that is for the fees that we pay to our managers. We do a lot of management fees that are paid directly, meaning we write checks to these managers. There are other fees that are just taken indirectly out of the investments, but overall we spend a lot where we actually write checks to these managers. So this is really something that I would say Mariner has been focusing on, looking at fees and trying to reduce fees as much as possible. And so we have seen a reduction in some fees. Obviously, we don't know what that fund balance is going to be throughout 2025, if they're good conditions, which is always a good thing, or if it's going to be a down year. But we are anticipating that we will need less. We had 2.9 million and we're looking at 2.8 million for those fees. Then related to that are our custodian services. Again, this is new this year with PNC Bank as our new custodian starting in January. And again, through the RFP process, it very successful results and fees. And so we anticipate we have those fees locked in for an additional 5 years total, but for an additional 4 years after this year. So we're not anticipating any changes here from the prior year because we have those fees locked in. With Mariner, we are actually into the 4th year of our agreement with Mariner. So we had 3 years where there was fees locked in, but for 2025, they're asking for a increase of this 190, so an additional $4,000. Angie, you had a question?
Yeah, on the investment management fees, for the accounts billed directly, I guess I was just wondering if the calculation to get to that 2.375 million was the 475 million times the basis points, because I got a different number, so I just had a question about that.
Yeah, so there is another chart at the end of this that we can look at, and that kind of gives you the so this is where we're taking a look at the fees that we have so far. And this is how much we've spent so far for this year. And so you can see what we've spent and what we anticipate, what we have budgeted is, you know, the 2.9 and the 2.8 we think should cover it. Because again, we spent a little over 2 million, you know, this year.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Busy going back. All right, so again, on Mariner, this is just a slight increase for them. We have an RFP schedule, and so we will have Mariner another 2 years, and then we will do RFP then after the 26. So we would do it in 26 for 2027 just to see what is out there. But again, just a slight increase. They've had this 190,000 for the last three years. Our actuary is through, used to be Buck, but they were purchased by Gallagher about 1.5 years or so ago. And so they are in the process really and mostly have dropped the Buck name and are just going to be Gallagher going forward. So they are the actuary, been the actuary going back, I think, to 2012. They were part of an RFP that we did in 2021. So we had a 3-year agreement with them in 22. RFP schedule has this, again, 2 more years out. So the same cycle as the investment consultant. So in their agreement, they have some cost of living adjustments built in. So that's what this number does reflect, is it reflects the slight, cost of living adjustments. I think it's about 2.4 for this year for some services. And this, again, we budgeted 139 in 2024, and so an increase of 146. There's also some miscellaneous, and that's what we use. We have to work on anything outside of the scope of any of these other things, and we have been using that this year. We do legislation. There are actuarial cost statements that are required, so that would all be part of that. Legal services. This is our new law firm, Hush Blackwell, again, as of April 1st. And we have kind of broken this out into a couple of different categories, just their general legal services. So we do have an agreement with them that we're going to have about 125,000 of legal expenses. But it's not a hard cap, meaning that they're still kind of evaluating our time, their time that they spend doing work for us. So if we get above 150,000 in expenses for the year, then they would potentially charge us at whatever the billable rate is. So far we're within their, what they call their collar, we're within that. But we have built some in because of the legislative work that we anticipate being done this year. So we've reduced it slightly. This larger number, the 280, was at the time the budget was built last year. We did not know the outcome of the RFP, what the costs were going to be. So this amount has been reduced slightly. Again, we could use this full, 60,000, just depending on, what is needed for legislative work. And then on the auditing and accounting services, we are going to be next year, we're going to be in the last year of the agreement that we have with Anders, who is our audit firm. So they will do audit for the 2024 plan year, and then we have RFP to do later in 2025. So again, they have in their agreement letter from the agreement that we signed 3 years ago that certain things each year will increase. So these things include, or this total amount includes those increases in those amounts. And so they provide services for the audit, they produce the GASB report, the employer report, and then they also assist us with our 1099s. They review the annual report that goes to GFOA, and then they provide some payroll audit assistance for us as well. We also have in this category a small amount for a few years ago, we transitioned from doing payroll internally to where we have a service that does that for us, and it's worked out really well. They have a site where the staff can go see their pay stubs, look at their time off, and then they do the filing for us, all the tax filing. So it's very cost effective. We spend a little less than this, but again, their services could increase in July. So, this is included in this category as well for the staff to take care of payroll and filing taxes. So I'm going to pause there after those categories and see if there are any questions before we keep marching on. All right. So if not, our next, I'm sorry, was there a question?
Hello, Sue?
Yeah, I hear you.
Did we go over budget for the elections?
What's what we're getting ready to do right now?
No, I see that, we were budgeted 20,000, but we spent 29,000?
No, this is what we are requesting for 2025.
Oh, gotcha. Woo,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, we did not spend the full 20,000 this year.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we had just one election in 2024. But in 2025, we will have an active election for an active member and an election for a retiree member. So this budget has been bumped up. Again, we don't know when we do an election, we don't know if we have enough candidates, and we have to do multiple mailings to get enough candidates. We have to have at least 2 to get started, and then if we don't get 2, we can eventually get down to 1, but we have to continue doing mailings until we have found out that we have just at least 1 candidate. So that's all built into this budget here. So it's a little more. This also includes some postage. We anticipate there will be a postage increase next year as well. So that's what this is asking, or why it's. All right, and then we get into technology. So I am going to shift to a different spreadsheet for the technology. Bear with me. So this is for the technology spreadsheet. And this is going to include hardware, software, and then services. So hardware, again, we have a schedule where we're replacing machines on a yearly basis. You know, usually machines, you want to replace them within 5 to 7 years. So we do have a schedule to do that. We have two machines. We do have to migrate to Windows 11. That's something that we need to do. So that's included in this first line item to replace 2 desktops. We also need a docking station. So that's all included as hardware in there. We do have iPads for the trustees. And so if any trustee is interested in having, it's actually a Chromebook. So if any trustee is interested in that, we can order those. So I usually have a little bit in the budget for that as well. So that's included there as well. And then, you know, things break, whatever, we need to have some funds set aside for that. So we do have that in the budget as well. And then we do have some security cameras in there. So that is, you know, that's included in here as well. So that's the hardware portion of that. In software, most of these are just normal things other than the very last item there. And that is for the pension administration software. And so they have provided the vendor that was selected, LRS. They have provided what is needed for each year of the implementation. So this chunk here, that 852,000, that is the amount that's needed for that installment. We have some money in this year's budget for the first installment. So hopefully we're going to get that taken care of this year. And then this would be, so we'd be about halfway done paying for the software with this particular payment. And then services, again, most of that is our normal services, such as the death audit services, where we upload a file with PBI, which we used to use Berwyn. And now all of a sudden those 2 companies they're together now. So I think it's going to be branded as Berwyn again, but it's, I think, using the PBI technology. So a little confusing there. But that is the cost to have our file of retirees and some actives monitored continually so that there will not be any surprises if a person passes away. We will be getting notification of that through this system. And then we have our technology vendor, and there's a lot of services tied into that technology vendor. Really what we're paying to that technology vendor for their services is just about that 20,000. And then we have other things, other tools that they take care of for us that is just a pass through. So they're not actually receiving anything for it other than they purchase it for us, and then we just reimburse them. So there are tools such as scanning our servers for any suspicious activity and shutting that down or notifying us. So there's a lot of things that needs to be done to make sure that we are not in danger of anybody doing anything, any bad actors taking action here. And then we have some data recovery, security testing that we are going to look at doing as well this year. We have not done that yet, but it's something that has been recommended for us to do. We have systems for our imaging services that's included in here, about 10,000. And then I guess really the largest item in here is for Siegel that assisted us with the RFP process as we continue on through the PAS implementation. They would assist us on a part-time basis to take care of project management, making sure everything is on track, assisting us, kind of understanding some of the things, helping us with testing. There's really a lot of things that we would rely on them to do during this implementation. So they've given us an estimate of their services. We are looking at 300,000 for next year. And Jupiter is the current vendor that we use for the current WIN, what we call the WIN database system. So we believe that their services are going to be needed at least until we no longer have the former database. And then we built in a little bit extra as recommended by Siegel for vendors such as the imaging or Jupiter that might be needed in addition to what they're currently providing just for the implementation. So then that all wraps up here. This total wraps up here to the 1.3 million that was on that other page. So I will pause here because there's a lot of information there and see what questions there are.
Hey, so I think I might have missed it. I think you said it. For the new system that's being implemented, you said there was some carryover from this year. Is that why those two numbers are different?
And what two numbers are you?
The total where it says total software, 858. Ooh, my eyes bad. 185 versus 857, 685 on the total. Go up a little bit with your cursor. Come back down. Right there. Uh-oh, you were there. Those two numbers right there.
Oh, you're talking about this number here?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, this number is, that could just be left in from last year. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, that number is, I do have this total. I don't think that is enough to include that total. But this total at the bottom should include all of those three things.
Okay,
So
but it should be the 858, 165. I mean 185, right?
Yeah, my apologies. Thank you for catching that. That was probably left from last year.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah, so that number includes that large payment that would be due the system vendor. So any other questions on this page before I go back? Okay. All right, so we have technology, and then we do have, disability applications that have really slowed down. And this is for individuals who are active employees and they, if they become disabled, ill, or whatever, they can apply for a disability retirement. So that is what this process is. We have a new vendor that we selected a few years ago. Our old vendor just kind of stopped servicing us, and so we did find a new vendor. We're very pleased with them. They have a variety of doctors, specialties that will review a situation, very responsive. So we had thought there would be a lot post-COVID, that we'd see more, and we really haven't seen that. So we're reducing the amount requested for this year. The next category is for property management. As trustees hopefully are aware, we do own the building, and so we do have to pay for a lot of services. Again, we have a new vendor, Intellica is our property manager. Again, been very pleased with them. They're very responsive, on site, routinely without us really even having to ask. We have a work order system, so we put something in and they are very responsive. So we pay just, flat fee for their services. And then we also pay when they come on and do different things. So that's included in this. We also do trash and recycling pickup. And then we have a vendor that comes in and does custodial work for us as well. And so that all wraps up then to, on the next page, to the 82,000. And then we do have then utilities, and these are the utilities that are included. We have internet, we have backup internet, our phone service. We had a new vendor last year. We moved, Mitel stopped providing services. And so now we have Zoltus. So this is the cost. Again, we get a very favorable price from them. And then we do have electrical service. Obviously, we've done some things with lighting throughout the building to reduce the cost. So this all wraps up a little bit higher. Because again, fees typically do change. So just a little bit higher, about 30 over almost 125. And then postage is another thing we spend quite a bit on, mailing out the newsletter. We do retiree and active newsletter mailings 4 times a year. So we have a separate active newsletter, retiree newsletter. So we're really mailing out 8 newsletters. We try to combine those mailings like we did with the annual report summary. Hopefully everybody has received those copies now. But we included the newsletter in with the annual report, so we wouldn't have to pay extra postage. We also do mail out an open enrollment guide to all those individuals who have insurance through the system. And so that obviously costs as well. Annual benefit statements, which we're required to do, those are sent out as well. So again, this amount pretty similar, but again, with postage increasing, that's going to tweak that as well. Printing and office supplies, again, these saves a lot of money because we are printing the newsletters in-house, and the benefit statements and some election notices we do print in-house. We have a very favorable contract with the vendor Konica that we have, copier, and essentially all the toner is provided. So any copies that we can make as many color, black and white copies as we want, and there's no extra charge. The only thing we have to do is purchase the paper. So that is less expensive for us to print these newsletters in-house. Obviously, we can't produce everything in-house. The nice booklets for open enrollment, annual report summaries, those have to be done at a printer. But beyond that, these are all done, excuse me, in-house, the newsletters and the annual benefit statements. And so those costs are just a slight increase for 2025. And then this is the lease on our printer. We also have our own postage machine. And then we do have fire truck. So those pretty much, you know, again, just a slight increase. The equipment purchases were what we saw on the other technology page. So again, I'll pause and see if there are any questions on this page. So we get to business insurance. And this is a little bit of an unknown. These policies will renew, all of them except for the cyber liability will renew now in July. So that's something that Gallagher, our insurance broker, provided. They wanted to kind of consolidate and make sure it's easier for the trustees to take a look at, you know, the policies really just one time a year. Previously, like in the December meeting, we'd have the property and the workers' comp policies, those would be renewing. And then we'd have the crime and the fiduciary, those would be renewing in July. So now that's all consolidated. So those things will be renewing in July. And so we just have the cyber policy that's kind of off cycle that renews in February. So if we can get that, the market has been a little crazy with that cyber coverage, but it seems to be kind of settling down. And we had a very favorable renewal this past year, just less than $2,000. So we hope the premium looks favorable again. So just a slight increase there, because again, we don't know what the fiduciary coverage is going to look like in July next year. Trustee educational expenses, again, we have 40,000 this year. Looking at budgeting pretty much the same for next year. Now, the category where we had the biggest increase was under the retiree insurance. And for the last 2 years, the system has not had to pay the subsidy. The system pays an $80 per member per month subsidy for anybody that's enrolled in health insurance. But we had a favorable RFP back in 22. And so in 23 and 24, those premiums were zero. So the members didn't have to pay, the system didn't have to pay. But as was presented in August of this year at the August board meeting, United Healthcare could not sustain that zero premium guarantee for 2025. And that was because of the changes in the prescription drug coverage. So insurers are now going to be paying more of the prescription drug coverage. Members will only have to pay $2,000 a year for their drug coverage. There's no more donut hole. If anybody's heard about that donut hole, you would pay your drug expenses, you get to a certain point, and then you'd have to pay out of your pocket. So that has all gone away starting in 2025. So it's great for the members, but you know, we are seeing that the insurers are saying that they're going to pay increased cost. So they were not able to pass along that savings, that zero premium for year 3, the final year of the agreement. So they have charged a $50 fee, a premium for anybody enrolled in that Medicare Advantage. We have 2 plans, the low and the high plan. So we are still paying the $80 subsidy for those individuals that are enrolled in the SLPS base and buy-up plans. We have seen a lot of folks move from those plans over to the Medicare Advantage plans. So that's been awesome. Monica's done a great job of working with folks and moving folks over when appropriate to these Medicare Advantage plans. And there are some people that are pre-Medicare that are not able to make that migration, but we have seen a lot of movement. So those costs have reduced, but in 2025, this is the big hit to the budget, about $1 million more than last year, because we have to pay for all of those members enrolled, that $50 premium that's being charged. We will be going out to RFP in 2025 and are hopeful that the market will settle down and we'll be able to get favorable pricing again. In 2022, when we did the RFP, we had several vendors that were offering zero premium for us. But again, we don't know what that'll look like in 2026, but hopefully we can get back to zero or maybe even, at least less than the $50 a month. So this is really the category that took the biggest hit in the budget. So again, I'll pause and see if there are questions after that category.
Well, I don't have a question, but I can say that for the district, we saw our healthcare costs going up quite a bit as well. So when I saw these numbers in the packet, I was not surprised.
Yeah, it's a trend. It seems like every few years, health insurance spikes, then it kind of comes down and it spikes back up again. So I think what we see here is good for the members. They will have less out of their pocket, but obviously somebody still has to pay those costs. So. All right, so I will move on. Into the miscellaneous expenses.
Before you move, I'm sorry. This is not a question, just more a comment. That 2023 number or 2023, right before you go to the next part, go up before retiree insurance. Should that say 2024? Go up just a little bit for me. Keep going. You got to move the page.
Oh, all the way up.
Sorry, just
Sorry.
a little bit, just a little. Okay, right there where it says projected for 2023. Do we mean 2025? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I should have had you wordsmith this.
No, don't do that, Sue. I don't need any more.
Yeah, thank you. I'll have that correct.
It's all good. I understand. My budget always has the wrong year on it every year.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so in miscellaneous, then we do have one expense in here that's new. So this includes our bank account fees, which again, we're seeing pretty stable fees from PNC. We are also gaining interest from our bank accounts, which are not reflected here. They're reflected kind of in the total page. So of about 100,000 a year, so well above the bank account fees that we're anticipating of 25,000. The major thing that's included in this miscellaneous is a new request for PR assistance. We had a request and have had some requests for media comments on various stories and with the system working on contribution legislation. And so far, we're seeing those requests. And we really don't have any internal staff. Myself, I'm not experienced necessarily in that area. So we got a couple of bids from a couple of vendors to assist us kind of on just a retainer sort of basis to help us respond to any media requests that we get. And also the fee will include helping us if we want to develop a social media presence, drafting some positive things about the system that can be published. So really kind of getting our presence out there. So we had two bids, one that you see here, the lower bid, and then one that was from another company called Vector Communications, was 60,000. This bid here is from a company called Polished, and they work with us on training, but the individual that's in charge of that company, she has a lot of media experience. She worked in the county executive's office, so she does work with media a lot, and her proposal included not only just helping us respond on an as-needed basis, but also providing some training on how to deal with the media, which would be helpful for myself. And she would also, trustees, included in that as well if needed. So that's a new item, and that may just be for next year, as we work through, legislation and other things. We may just have that need for next year, but we did want to include that. So questions about that?
So for the
Let's-
two different PR assistance lines, that's because it's two different companies. Is that the rationale?
No, I'm sorry. That's just membership. I apologize. That is not PR assistance. It is memberships is 5,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so the PR assistance is just 36,000.
Okay, Sue, how often do you have to talk to the media?
So we've had a few requests this year. We've done statements. So it doesn't happen a lot, but when it happens, I don't have anybody to go to assist me in developing a response other than our attorneys. And,
Very expensive.
they're gonna charge us for that assistance as well.
Okay, so could this assistance be done on as needed basis instead of a thing there in the budget?
Yeah, so we would pay them about 3,000 a month, and they would be on retainer. And then they would also do training for us to assist us in responding to media requests. Also help us develop statements that we would publish about the system. And then if we wanted to get a presence on social media, then they would assist us with getting that up and running as well. So all of those things would be part of that $3,000 a year.
So I guess Sue, what Sheila's saying is you're gonna pay it whether you use it or not, correct?
We're gonna pay the 3,000 a month. That's right.
You said 3,000?
A month, yeah. So the 36 for the year.
I find that kind of steep and not really an item that needs to be in there, but as needed. Because like I just asked, how often do you talk to the media? And to to get a statement or to put a statement together, 3,000 a month is kind of steep.
And that's why they're gonna do some additional things for us to the media training and helping us produce publications.
So I think that we're mature enough to be able to handle something like that. I know that, with crisis or stuff that hits the media or, you're right, our staff is not equipped to do that, and your attorneys are not, they're not lobbyists and they're not PR people, right? They're there to make sure that you do things legally. And so there is a need for it. There is a need for training with such a small staff. Because I think that the bigger issue is that if Sue were to say something without consulting a PR person, and the attorneys are only gonna say legally, I can only say that this is what, it is, but the attorneys can't tell Sue what to say to the media. They can tell her what not to say, but they can't say, and so you really, at this point, need to have something, some training and some documents and some standard press release, because that's not in Sue's job description, right? Is to have that expertise to be able to know who to contact, how to, whatever the story may be. And so it's kind of like having car insurance, right? You want to be, when you need it, you're so glad you have it, right? But it's something that people sometimes don't get because they're like, what are my probability of me using it or needing it? And so I think that's a good price, personally.
Super. I did, does anybody else speak? I did want to say that going into this next legislative session, we're, as you all well know, we're trying to get our pension back at the hopefully 80%, 70% level, so we can get off the watch lists and those things. And the Polished company has done a lot in terms of providing me with written statements and things of that nature for the legislature and all of those kind of things. And she knows what we're talking about, the focus and the mission, and then she prepares a script for me. And then again, the training for the staff. And then things are going to be coming up in this next legislative session that we haven't ever had before, because as I've shared with you all, this is the first time in the history that the pension system has actually sat down and negotiated with the school system. And so there are things that come up, and as a retainer, no matter what happens for that particular month, it's $3,000. But if we went into having her just do it just wholesalely, I think it would cost a lot more.
Now, who's supposed to receive this training? Because you said the staff is not going to be doing the talking.
Yeah, it would be myself and trustees, particularly like say the chairperson, would be trained to deal with the media.
I still think it's too steep, and it should be as needed item.
Right.
Yeah, and we did have the two proposals. One was 60,000, and then this one. So I went with the lesser. And again, we've worked with Polished before.
The staff development, we have her do that as well, right?
I'm sorry.
Does she do staff development and training?
Yeah, she does some training for us as well on communication topics and things like that. And that's separate. All right, any other questions or comments on this item?
I just, sorry, as an individual on a different board that is currently receiving a lot of media attention and scrutiny, I think it's definitely worth it for the training and knowing how to respond. I think it's worthwhile, especially with all the legislative stuff coming up.
Thank you. All right, and then special projects. A lot of this is similar to what we had last year. Still looking at areas that are need to be painted. We haven't really done that yet. The ceiling of the parking lot, we haven't done that. Partly because we had to spend some money doing some work on our HVAC units. They're original to the building. And, those are gonna be, 18 to 20,000. We get varying prices depending on, they're rooftop units, so they're very, very expensive. So we wanted to put one in there just in case something happens. And I think they go back to 2006, so approaching 20 years. We did have one fail. So we did have unexpected expenses. Again, that's also included unforeseen. So we did have that amount set aside, but again, probably going to look at having to replace at least one unit. So that's really the major increase in this part of the budget. So questions or comments overall on this part of the budget? All right, so I'll put up just a overview document here. And this will, get into salaries in just a second, but this just shows you for all those categories that we went over, kind of what the actual expenses have been for the last few years, where we are in 2024, and then where we are in projected in 2025. So on this page here, I wanted to draw attention to some things that are revenue for the system. We have securities lending up and running. So we do anticipate that we'll see some revenue from securities lending this year. And then commission recapture, not a huge ticket item, but we do have some that we expect as well too. And then we do have new tenant that's moving in. So we'll have some revenue there as well. And then, the larger item is the interest, that $100,000 that we're getting, that we didn't get with the prior bank, custodian and treasury management provider. We got these credits that reduced the amount of expenses that we're paying, but it appears that we are paying less in fees and then also receiving interest. Now, obviously, interest rate is much more favorable, but we are receiving this interest on 2 regular accounts that we have at PNC. So I just wanted to highlight, these items that are increases to revenue to the system. All right.
So I have a question. Who's the new tenant?
So this is the Alpha One Greek, the embroidery promotional items provider.
Okay.
And they're just going to have the first floor. So we will continue to try to look for a second floor tenant, but we have just the first floor now.
So did you want to go into what they'll be paying or anything?
All right, so I think the next section would be to take a look at salaries and benefits. So.
Okay. Going into executive session.
Yeah. I have that motion up there.
Make a motion to close the meeting and move into executive session to discuss personnel matters pertinent to RSMO 610.02113.
Richardson second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Angela Banks,
Yes.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lewis Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Emily Hubbard,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Doris Walker,
Yes.
and Sadie Weiss.
Yes.
So I do have 9, the motion carries, so let me do a few things.
Day grace period. Where regardless of if it's not, that's not something that people, the reason why I'm even able to tell you is because it's not something you gotta worry about.
Okay. What's the next item on the agenda?
So that was it.
That's it.
Okay, so at the end of this day, all in favor of an adjournment of this meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Good.
Any opposition? Me. Okay, everyone?
See you all Monday.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thanks.
Good night.
Mhm.
Good night.